Welcome everyone to our first meeting. I hope this is just the first in the long row of more meetings to come where we'll meet new people and interact with more different organizations and projects in science communication. This idea of the meetup came to Lyuba and I when we were discussing about what Lectures Without Borders are doing and the webinars, and I said, well, Lyuba invited me to join the webinar that was already planned, and I said, well, that's very nice, I will try, but actually I had something already planned for the same day. But then I said, why don't we reach out to more people, and why don't we make it a bigger event and invite other science communication organizations? Because I always feel sorry that there are so many interesting events, but there is no place where I can actually learn from the organizers how they do it, what are their best practices, how we can also implement something. And I sometimes feel that we are reinventing the wheel in Munich in our 15x4, because probably people already found a solution for something and they have some nice practices, but there's just no way to find out unless you can personally take part, and sometimes you just cannot take part because it's somewhere on the other side of the world. So with this, we conceived the idea of science communication without borders. I will tell you more about what 15x4 Munich is, and before we go there, maybe Lyuba or Athanasia can share a bit about Lectures Without Borders. Who of you wants to do that?
So, do you want to start, Lyuba? And
no, go ahead. Go ahead, Nasya.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, hi everyone. We are here presenting the Lectures Without Borders. So we make this nice input in the title of SciComms Without Borders to say that we are now together in this. And our organization is actually based in Paris, but we are operating globally. And that means that the idea in the beginning was to have all the traveling scientists that were traveling so much for all conferences, they have high mobility, to combine it with outreach activities. So whoever of them wanted to do something like that, we would provide a network of schools and a network of contacts where we would facilitate them to find something in their country of travel, destination country. And this idea started from 2017, actually, with Lyuba, Delphine, Misha, and me. So we were, let's say, there from the beginning. And also Nastya joined us a bit later, like this year, actually, officially. And yeah, this is a core team. We just started it as a naive idea. And now we have so many people registered and so many schools in our network that we want to use this capacity for everyone to, to benefit, and for the schools as well. The science communication is a part that a lot of researchers, especially young ones, are interested, because they want to contribute in the society, right? And it becomes increasingly more and more difficult when you're into the research and into the hardcore science to do this. So we would welcome any guidance and any more expertise on that, especially from 15x4. Let's say the number is correct. Since I'm here, I can present also myself personally. I am a postdoc researcher in the 𝗔𝗂𝘂𝘁 University of Rome in the Department of Physics. So that's my background. I'm a physicist, and I'm working for a space mission, among other stuff. So I'm looking at exoplanets and planets. So that's my specific interest in climate. And with Lyuba, we got to meet through the climate community, actually, because these two were connected. So actually, we met in 2014, and that's how this connection started. Nice to find you all. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks. Very cool. So you know each other for quite a long time already. Wow. Let's have a look at our plan for today. So we already did this intro and networking part. Now we will go to my presentation about 15x4 Munich, and at the end, we definitely talk more. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have some questions to you. Maybe you can share some additional tips on the points that I will mention in my presentation. Also very curious to know how you organize things in your teams. And next time, we're looking forward to hear more about Lectures Without Borders. I think this experience of connecting scientists with schools is very unique, and definitely would be very interesting to the whole community to learn more about that. So my name is Viktoria Korzhova. I'm originally from Russia, but I'm living in Germany for the last 6.5 or something like that years. Actually, it's close to 7 already. Wow, time flies. I came to Germany to do a PhD. I'm a biologist by my background, and I did a PhD in neurobiology. But for the last 2.5 to 3 years, I don't work as a researcher anymore. However, I was still very much in touch with science and research. I worked in science management, and I worked in a company that makes equipment for scientists. And now I'm switching in more product management role to also work, hopefully, with some science and technology related companies. And since 2016, I was highly involved in science communication in Munich. Before that, I was also involved with some Russian science communication. I was writing posts for 𝗔𝗂𝘶𝘂𝘁. 𝗔𝗂𝘶𝘂𝘁 is like a website that many Russian speaking people might know who are curious about biology. It talks about molecular biology and tries to explain it in simple words. So I wrote several articles, and I was an editor for a while. Someone is creating a lot of noises. I think it's maybe Alon. I will mute you, just have less noise on our recording afterwards. Yeah, and then when I came to Munich, I was feeling like really science communication, something fun that I would like to do more. I would like to maybe go to some events, but all events were in German, and my German was not great. And I have to be honest, it's still not so great because all my professional life was always in English. I did all my science in English, and I always communicate with my colleagues in English, and I still kind of keep working in English mostly. So I was looking for some English-speaking events, and there was nothing. And then when there is nothing and you actually need something, then you just create it yourself, right? So I started with Pint of Science Munich. That was my first science communication event. And then I also brought box science to Munich. And I hope these are maybe 2 events that we have someone present in one of the next meetings, because I think they're both very interesting and have very interesting approach to science communication. And then I started working with 15x4 Munich, and I'm doing this for the last 3 years. And I want to tell you today a story of how the organization developed and some of the learnings that we gathered on the way, mostly around how to work as a team and how to work with a volunteer team, because I think this is especially tricky and challenging sometimes. So 15x4 is an organization that strives to share knowledge. Our motto is share your knowledge. And we believe that knowledge should be something really accessible for everyone. So it's knowledge for people. And we also think that everyone who has knowledge should be able to share it. So it's by people. And our speakers are often not scientists, but also just people who have a good expertise in something. Many of them have just university degree, but then they work in highly technological field, for example, and as they develop the strong expertise there, or just as a hobby, they explored some area for many years and they have a lot of knowledge that they would like to share. And we started in Munich in 2017, to be more precise, in April 2017. We had 4 events in Russian, and this has more historical reasons for this that I will share in a couple of slides. And then we decided that English is actually much better means to communicate to more people, to find more interesting speakers, and to build this community for international community in Munich. So why it was in Russian initially? Because 15x4 is an international organization that started in Ukraine, in the city Kharkiv. It's mostly Russian-speaking part of Ukraine, and they started with Russian-speaking events. And then the format 15x4, which has its name because of the 4 lectures of 15 minutes at each event. This format was very fun and people enjoyed it, and it was also quite easy to replicate. So the events spread through Ukraine and then through Russia, and many cities also organized their own branches of 15x4. And that's also how 15x4 came to Munich. One of our founders visited an event in Moscow. He was very inspired and he said we should do this as well in Munich, where I live, and that's how it started. And we started with the Russian-speaking events, but then we felt this has a very limited capacity of growth. Not so many people, like community of Russian-speaking people is pretty big in Munich, but not crazy. And also we realized some people come to Russian-speaking events just because it's Russian-speaking, not for science so much. And it was a bit disappointing. So we thought we should rather do it in English and use also a possibility to engage many scientists who are in Munich. Munich is, I think, in one of the Germany's most populated by scientist cities. There are 2 big universities. There is University of Applied Sciences, and also there are many institutes and on different topics. So in June 2017, we had our first English-speaking event, and since then we kept working, and also we helped a couple more English-speaking branches to open in other countries. Right now, it's around 20 cities around Europe and South Asia that have 15x4 branches, including one in Pakistan. And we hope that more hopefully will come. Most of these are still in Russia and Ukraine, but also there are there's one in Estonia, there's one in Israel. In Germany, it's one in Munich. Which one didn't I mention from the more exotic places? Yeah, the others are Ukraine and Russia. Why do we do this? As you know, it's just because we are curious, and I think many of you came to science communication driven by this curiosity to just know more. But we also believe in the team that doing science communication is important, and it's important for the society, because if the society is better educated in science, it can make better decisions, and better decisions for everyone, better policies, better medical decisions, and also just better decisions for everyday life. And this is something that we would like to promote. So far in these 3 years, we had 35 events, which means as each event is 4 talks with 4 different speakers, it's over 120 speakers. And in total, we had 3,500 guests. That's our rough estimation. Because each event is visited by 170 to 200 guests, mostly limited by the location, because it's not easy to find affordable location in Munich that can fit in many guests. And we often have a wait list that more people want to come to the events that we can actually allow in because of the space limitations. And with this, I believe we are the biggest science communication event in Munich. Even compared to German-speaking events, there are no other events which are happening so often as we do. So we usually have an event every month that then have so many guests per year as we do usually. And you can see on this slide as well what is our regular audience. We have around 35% students from different topics, around 20% scientists. We have quite many engineers and IT people. So IT is around 11%, engineers 4%. But we also have people from all other areas like management, marketing, PR. We have writers. I'm trying to remember who we had. We had people working for insurances, like really many different people. Also stay-at-home moms and dads. A variety, and I think this is also what makes us pretty unique in at least Munich landscape, that in Munich many science communication events are visited by scientists mostly. Like often it's 60% are scientists and 40% are people from outside. And as you see, for us this is very different, and we really reach the general audience that all the science communication events are trying to reach. Our audience is pretty young, so the majority is between 25 to 35, but we also get people from other ages as well. Kids we don't get so often, mostly because it's evening events, and also the topics are still pretty advanced for kids, so we don't prepare specifically for kids, and often it is a bit complicated that kids would not really understand. This is our core team. which is now 5 people. You can see we are also very international. We have a German person, we have Pakistani people, we have some Russians, we have girl from Bulgaria, we have Liliana from Portugal. So we have people from around Europe. And these are a bit of how the events look like. As you see, it's usually pretty packed. We also try whenever possible to implement some additional activities, like the one on the bottom left is in the break. We had a neural interface experiment that people could participate in and try to move the toy train with their brain waves, so to think, like with a thought. These are some of the reviews that our guests and speakers left to us, just to show you that we had some good participation here, and to brag a little bit, because further I want to tell you that we learned something good out of this experience. We also were quite good in collaborating with different organizations around Munich, around Bavaria and Bavaria, Germany. We collaborated with several IT companies, including Google, including JetBrains. There's a big companies that are quite known. We worked together with several institutional partners like Max Planck Institute for Psychiatry, TUM, this is Technical University of Munich. We collaborated with the research consortium called For Inter, which is funded by state government of Bavaria. And we also were part of several different science communication or just bigger festivals. For example, we were invited to be guest speakers at the Frankfurter Buchmesse. For those who don't know, it's the biggest, I think, or one of the biggest book fairs in the world. It's really huge, and they have present books, but also they have a lot of different activities like lectures, and we were also invited to be there in the one of the corners of the huge hall. And for this, we traveled to Frankfurt, by the way. Yeah, it's Frankfurter Buchmesse happens in Frankfurt. We also were part of the event called Science Days in Munich. That was an annual science festival for quite some time. Unfortunately, 2018 was the last time when it happened, but we were part of it then, and we talked there about the special topic of future of the work, of the job market. We also were part of Science and Fiction Festival. It's another fun, regularly happening festival in Munich, which talks about science and science fiction and their collaboration and communication, and what is the future of technology and of our society. One of the also big events in our history was that we were featured in the biggest Bavarian, and I think maybe even the biggest German newspaper, the Deutsche Zeitung. It's a really huge one that is published daily, and it's very well known. So we had a story there about 15x4. And all our talks are also on the YouTube channel. So if you're curious to see what kind of topics we covered, it's all there. It's all in English. And you can also train, so to say, real life English, because we have people from different countries presenting talks on different topics. This is one of the recent events which happened in Deutsches Museum. Deutsches Museum is a big museum of science and technology that is located in Munich. It's actually the biggest in the world. And we were very lucky to collaborate with them on several occasions. And we celebrated our birthday, which is always in April, there. And in this audience, we have around 200 people. And this is how we had it last year in 2019. Unfortunately, 2020 was, of course, a misfortune for us, and we didn't have this event in April, but it would have happened if not the corona. So this is what we had in 2019, but we also started with something pretty different. This is what we had in June 2017. So one of our first events, one of our first English-speaking events, you see we had around 30 people in the audience. And well, back then we were already pretty excited, but now we know that this is not our limit, and we usually get much higher interest. So what helped us grow in this plus 3 years, and what allowed us to get more guests, more followers, and more people interested in working with us and collaborating with us. And a disclaimer, I have to tell you from the beginning, we did not invest in advertising at all. Like, we did zero advertising. The first time we paid something for advertisement was just recently, this spring, because we were trying something out. But before, we never paid for any advertisement, and we actually did not do any proper promotion, which is in a way sad, because I think if we did, we would have been even more successful, but we didn't. And basically our main source of new contact, of new guests, was word of the mouth. So people were telling their friends, come to these nice events. People wanted to be speakers because they visited events, and so on. So how did this happen, and what I think were main important components of this successful growth? First of all, I think this is our speakers, and working with speakers a lot to make sure that they do good talks. And speakers, as I already mentioned to you, don't have to be scientists, but they have to be knowledgeable about a certain topic that they present. We also have a diversity, but not in the sense of diversity that is like pushed on organization from the state, but the real diversity that we really did not limit who can be a speaker. And if person was interested to be a speaker and had something good to say, this person would be able to be a speaker. And we had people from all around the world currently living in Munich presenting at our events. What is also important, we never sacrifice talk quality, and this is one of our important, very important beliefs, that quality of the talks should be good. Talks should be very understandable, and part of our mission is make sure and help people believe that science isn't something that is crazy complicated. Science is something that you can actually understand if it's properly explained. To make sure this happens, we have two components to our speakers preparation. First of all, we do a speakers kickoff, where we actually select speakers, and we do it every half a year. So in the beginning of the season for us is 4 events. We do a speakers kickoff where all people who are interested to give a talk at 15x4 give a short pitch, and then all people who are present, so the speakers and the team, vote for the talks that they would like to hear in the next season. And then we do rehearsals in a smaller group with speakers preparation team, where we make sure that talks are good. And here a bit more details on how this process works. So I already told you this, that we start with selecting, and we base our main target is talks based on knowledge. So it cannot be talks based on your personal experience. That's why I'm very unhappy when people compare it to us to TEDx, because in TED you can just talk something inspirational, that you woke up once and you understood everything about life and how this then changed the world. But this is not something that we do. So if you want to talk at 15x4, you actually have to prepare a talk that has shares some empirical knowledge. Then we work with our speakers on 3 consecutive rehearsals to make sure, first of all, that there is a clear structure to the talk. And I'm a strong believer that clear structure of the talk is the #1 thing to make your talk understandable. Because if people know what's coming, if they understand how things are connected, this helps them to understand even the very complex details. Then we have 2 weeks before the second rehearsal, and during this time each speaker gets a buddy. This is one of our speakers preparation team members, so someone who is experienced in talking, in preparing speakers. And I'm seeing something there is in the chat. I will comment on this Athanasia's question a bit later when I finish this slide. So 2 weeks is to work with the buddies. Buddies are available on mutual agreement with the speaker, and they meet usually 2-3 times in these 2 weeks to check some details of the talk, or to rehearse, to try it out, to work on slides, to make sure that the talks is moving forward and the preparation is ongoing. On the second rehearsal, the speakers preparation team gathers and they listen to the whole talk, how it looks now, and make sure that there is no jargon or no complex terms, and everything is explained in a simple language as much as possible. And in 1 week, there is another rehearsal, which we call dress rehearsal. And this is a rehearsal that as much as possible we do in the same place where the event will happen. This is not always possible, but in most cases it's possible, and we do that. This is to help speakers feel comfortable on the stage, know how everything works, how the microphone works, and again, make sure that they feel comfortable enough to deliver the talk well. Before I go to volunteers, there was a question from Nasia. I don't want to on which platform were the evaluations given by the audience? Okay, I guess this is a question about the kickoff. So the kickoff really looks like this. Nasia, do you want to just say it?
No, it was before that you mentioned the visibility in the press and also the feedback from the audience, that there were some reviews.
Right.
Yeah, where it happened. Thank
you. Okay. Sorry, I missed when the question appeared, but it was just want to show this slide. So this is from Facebook.
From Facebook. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, this is our Facebook page, and people can recommend your business if you have a page. And this is some of the comments that they left.
Okay, nice.
Thanks. But it is pretty tricky. Of course, out of like almost 3,000 followers, we have just a handful of reviews, because that's not easy to make people write something. But sometimes they do, and it's always a nice surprise. So first part, I think that was important for our successful growth and getting known in Munich is quality of talks, that talks were interesting, that were diverse on who presents them, but also on the topics, and that they were well prepared, that people could really understand, and thus they enjoyed the talks. And a chance to interact with speakers in the break or after the talks is something else that people appreciate a lot, and they like to ask questions about the topic. And the second important part is volunteers. So we are a completely volunteer team. We started with a very small team of approximately 6 people. Now we are 26, I think. And there were some big learnings on the way that we had to go through. And I want to share some of these learnings with you. And I think what especially made it more tricky or more challenging for us is that the team is completely volunteer, which means everyone works in their free time. No one will sacrifice their job or main study for this, for 15x4, and they shouldn't do that. And also there is no monetary reward. So the reward is only feeling good for doing something well and seeing that events are successful. So first big learning is structure is very, very important. And things need to be structured to help people understand how we work, where things are, how to find something. And also this is something that helps new people to get into the team and to find their place and find how they can contribute. However, it's also important to remember that you should not structure prematurely. Like when we had a team of 6 people, we just interacted in the Facebook chat, and that was completely fine. Like we didn't need a much more complex tool to arrange our work. At some point, we started to feel this is not working. We cannot find some things. We missed part of the conversation and so on. And then we changed to Slack. But again, in Slack first, we just had one channel. So the channel, which was for the whole team, which was, as I said, was very small. Slack has an advantage towards Facebook Messenger, because then you can have structured, like you can have threads, so you can see to which exact message you want to reply, and this gives more structure. But again, after a while, it was visible that we have several areas with which we work. They sometimes overlap, but mostly they exist independently. And then we created more Slack channels to divide to speakers preparation, to some organizational things, and so on. And also coming to here, try not to over-engineer. So structure is important, but structure should come when it's needed and when you know what kind of structure you need. So I really recommend to start with something simple that is easy to use, and create structure when the whole teams feel, okay, we need some more structure. We need to divide our space into more smaller spaces to be sure where to find things. And do not try to establish the structure before there is a team working, because maybe what you have in your head is completely different from what will actually be needed. And I would say, even if you have experience, if you already worked with teams, do not try to necessarily bring all of your experience in the new place, because the new team with a bit of a different project or different organization might work a bit differently. The second thing is talking and meeting. And meeting and talking is super, super important. And while people often complain for the meetings, especially in the workplace, I don't think there is a better solution to bring people on the same page, to really establish collaborative atmosphere, and to really make sure everyone understands what's happening. So most cases you need to talk to people. Sometimes talking is good even for some small things, because writing something might bring more misunderstanding, and sometimes it's better to have a short call, 5 to 10 minutes, but make sure that it's clear and both sides understand. Also because when we talk on the phone, or better, when we talk with like Skype or Zoom, we see a person, more communication channels are involved. And maybe you also felt that sometimes when you just text with the person, you don't completely understand each other. And when you talk, you understand each other much better. So video calls are great. If you can meet in person, sometimes it's even better. And from some serious talks, let's say, it's very good to meet in person. And meetings have to happen. However, so you should try to make sure that your teammates don't hate meetings. And for this, agenda and timekeeping is important. So you need to think, and whoever organizes the meeting should think in advance what the meeting will be about, and tell people at least in the beginning of the meeting, or better upfront, what the meeting will be about. And there should be a person who is responsible for timekeeping and who keeps the discussion focused on what the agenda was. So this person is a moderator usually. The moderator should not only look at the time, but also make sure, as I said, to keep the conversation focused. And if new questions pop up, but they were not initially planned to be discussed, they should be kept until the end. If there is time, they can be discussed, or they should be taken to the next meeting. And it's also very helpful if someone is taking notes, can be moderator or can be someone else, but taking notes and sharing them afterwards with the team is super helpful to make sure everyone is on the same page. And if you do timekeeping and moderation, you can definitely make meetings shorter. And when meetings are short and effective, people will not hate them. At least they will accept them as inevitable evil. Or maybe they will even like it because they will understand this is effective and this helps us move forward. So first, structure. Second, talk and meet. Yeah, one more thing for the meetings. Each meeting should end with something actionable. So it should be clear what are now actions to be taken, what are to-dos, what is our to-do list, what is to-do list of each person, and what are the deadlines to implement this action. So if meeting is just people met, talked, and left, and it feels like nothing was decided and no actions are planned, this will be a very useless meeting, and this will also be, people will also feel bad that they wasted time. And the last thing is a lot of iterations. This applies both to structure, to meetings, to everything. You should be aware that whatever happens in the live organization, in the live team, is not something that you can set in stone once and for all and then work and use this structure for years to come. This is never going to happen. You will have to reiterate and change it all the time. This is tiring, that's true. That's sometimes frustrating because you only felt that, okay, something is now clear, we divided the roles and we worked for a month, and now it feels like it's all falling apart again because something new happened and we have to adjust. But unfortunately, only by adjusting and only by iterating, you will be able to keep existing. And if you refuse to adjust, then things will fall apart. And some more complex things. So first of all, this is how our team is structured. I told you we have like 26, 27 people right now. And the picture shows how we were working for a while. And the word below is something that I learned recently. This is a fancy way to call this organizational structure, holacracy. It is not exactly the opposite. I wouldn't say it's the opposite of hierarchical structure, but it's a more flat structure. There's less hierarchy. However, still there are coordinators. So each of this circle represents a group of people working towards one goal or one direction in the organizational work. And each of these teams has a coordinator, and coordinator is person who connects this circle with the rest of the team. In 15x4, we call this teams, coordinators, and we have a general coordinator, which is myself. And I'm the one to communicate with coordinators of teams. And we also have some people who are not part of the specific team, but they are mostly helping us on the certain tasks. Like we have photographers who come to the events and take pictures at the events, but they are not involved in some other parts of their work. But they're also essential part of the team, of course. So division of labor to sub-teams, this is what we implemented. We have coordinators and board in 15x4 are coordinators of teams. And these are the 8 people I showed you on one of the slides before. We have a general assembly twice a year. So every half a year, we come together like everyone here. And usually we do it offline. Now we had to do it online as everything. So we had it in June. And if you guys, by the way, interested, I later can tell you a bit more how we did that, or I can share it on a separate meeting maybe, because I think it went not ideal, but pretty well, better than I expected. And I can show what was the structure of our meeting. And these assemblies are meant to, first of all, to see everyone sees each other. That's very important that people see each other, because maybe during the half a year they met once or twice only because they all had their own activities and they didn't really meet, but they have to meet sometimes and feel that they are parts of the same team. And also this is where we review our goals and what were achievements from the previous half a year, how are they connected with the goals, and what the goals for the next half a year we want to establish. Just to reiterate, I already mentioned to you that iteration and adjusting is important. And we really learned that the team structure is a process, it's not a result, and it has to naturally evolve. This more complex structure only appeared when we were more people and when there was a need. When we started as 6 people, there was almost no structure. We all did everything. We iterated the roles. And we did not really need the structure until we had more people, and then there was more clear labor separation. And onboarding of new volunteers and situational leadership is also something very important. So onboarding means that people need to, when you get new people on the team, they need to be introduced to the processes that already exist, to the team structures. They need to know how it basically works, where to find things, and so on. And ignoring that is really a mistake, because people then get lost and they don't know where to look. And oftentimes this happens in volunteer organizations, that new people are invited, they are told some very basic stuff, but not enough. and then people try to find something and they try to do something, and then they are lost because they cannot do anything, and then they just leave. It's also important to give the new volunteers some specific area where they can start doing something, when they can start implementing something, and then they feel that they're actually participating in the organization. And situational leadership means that you also need to adjust your leadership role, or leading a certain person to how this person gains more experience and evolves. In the beginning, when the person is very new, doesn't know much, you should help, or there should be someone who helps a lot, because it's important that the person can get some small successes and the person doesn't get lost. But the more experience someone gets, the more he or she should also gain independence and be able to do things on their own. If someone is not getting independence, this is can be also a problem, like motivation lost, because when you want to do something but there's no way, that you're not interested anymore. And on top of this, there are some additional challenges that come with the volunteer work that are not so easy to solve. I don't always have a solution, but if you have some experience, I'm also very happy to hear afterwards. So it's a volunteer work, and it's a lot of work, which is difficult because on one hand, we only want to do it for fun, we want to do it on our free time, but at the same time, if we want to deliver something really cool, if we want to have this, as I told you, we rehearse a lot, for example, with our speakers, and it means quite a lot of work for a speakers preparation team. And this is not easy. So on one hand, we try to always find things that motivates each volunteer, and volunteers in our team can also change their tasks, like they can move from one sub team to another if at some point they are not motivated to keep doing what they were doing, but do something else. However, at the same time, and social connections are also helpful here, because many people are motivated not only by doing the job, or not so much by doing the job, as for having meaningful connections with others. And for this, we do social activities, and we go bowling, or we used to go bowling. Now it was a bit more difficult, but we also had just online hangouts, doing some quizzes together. Whoever was available and wanted to join, we did this as well during the quarantine to stay a bit more connected. Motivation is hard to keep on long run, again, because it's volunteer work and no one is getting paid. But this is where the leadership helps. So it helps that there are some drivers in the team who are very much motivated, and then they can help others to stay motivated. And it's also helpful to have this structure when people know what they can do, and they can also adjust how much they will do out of it. And they can tell, okay, I have so many hours per week that I can spend on this, and then the teams helps to identify what exactly can be done within these hours. And this is then possible to do. This is what helps people to stay motivated. Another problem is different schedules. People have exams. We have some students in the team who have exams. We have several scientists in the team who have experiments that don't finish, that go wrong, and so on, or paper revisions come, and so on. That Daria here understands me. Yeah, and we have to adjust to this. Again, what helps regular meetings and check-ins. It's important that each sub-team is meeting regularly, at least once a month, to see how things are going. And we always ask, okay, what is your availability in the next month? Tell us up front. Even if you don't have time, that's totally fine, but just the team needs to know when other people need to take over some things, or some things need to be paused for a while. And final, well, accept your limitations. I mean, these all challenges are really, really challenging, and you should not expect from yourself, being part of a volunteer team, to be able to solve any of this. Honestly, I think they don't have a solution. I think you need to understand sometimes it will just not work. After a while, some people will lose motivation and leave the organization. Sometimes life will happen and people will have different priorities and they will also leave. Sometimes they will return. Actually, we had also this experience that within the 3 years, some people were involved and they left and then they came back because this life situation changed and they had more availability or more motivation now. And accepting limitations is also good. You should not take too much on yourself and be reasonable. This is the end of my presentation. As usual, I couldn't talk shorter, even though I tried. I hope there were some more clear things, while generally, of course, this topic also is not so clearly structured. It's a bit tricky to give feedback, but I'm curious what kind of, I'm curious what kind of tips maybe you picked up. It would be very nice to hear from you. I see there is a question from Luke, but now maybe we just discuss this in the general discussion. If you want to help, yeah, we are always happy for specific helpers, but also if you just tell people, I know most of you are not in Munich, however, still tell your Munich friends that we exist and they should come. And you, in any case, just get in touch with me and I can tell you how you can help if you want to. We have our presence on most important social media channels. We are on Instagram, on Facebook, on Meetup as well, and Twitter. Our YouTube channel is called 15x4 Knowledge. It's not called 15x4 Munich because we have there English-speaking lectures from other 15x4 branches as well. I can recommend you doing that. And I don't want to take more time for myself, but if at some point in discussion you want me to comment on this, I can also tell you more about random coffee that we are doing in our community and the online sessions that we are implementing right now to do something while big, massive events are still not allowed. And the next online session will actually happen next week. Everyone is very welcome to join on the 16th of July on Thursday at 7 p.m. There is a meetup and Facebook events for this, so you can find it and you can sign up. With this, I will end this, and let's just talk. Thank you for writing some comments, what you learned, team structure and volunteering insights. Thanks. Luba, do you want to ask your question about that you wrote about volunteers?
Sure. Well, I mean, the short question is just who exactly works with volunteers, right? Because I guess that there is not only one person.
Yeah, I think I need to answer in several parts. So first of all, we are all volunteers. We have an official organization behind 15x4 right now, which is 15x4 e.V., and that's a German NGO or non-profit organization. But this is very formal thing. We only have 6 people out of the whole team there, and we just try to keep this all to minimum because it all brings bureaucracy with it. Then the whole team of volunteers is divided into these sub-teams. And each team is pretty independent. They manage themselves. I mean, there is a coordinator who helps to have meetings and make sure that the meetings are happening and the right questions are asked at the meetings, and the meetings end with to-do list and so on. And then there is a team coordinator who is me right now. And my tasks are to make sure that coordinators of all teams, which we call board, is meeting regularly. Again, that the right questions are asked at the meeting, that meeting, by the end of the meeting, all the open questions are clarified and the actions are planned. And also, currently, I'm the one who is onboarding new people. And here we had a bit of different experience. At some point, someone else, another member of the team, was trying to be the one to onboard new people. It was mostly because he was very interested in that. He said, oh, we should have more people. I want to do that. Let me onboard them. And everyone else was said, sure, if you want to do this, please do. And what he would do, he would, whenever people can apply to be our volunteers in very multiple ways, but once in a while he would bring them all together and show them a small presentation about 15x4 and then talk about what are different things that they could do. But to be honest, I think this approach didn't work so well, because these meetings often ended with very openly without not very clear action plan afterwards. And it was more like he was very open in giving, in providing information. Like he was saying, this, everything is possible. What do you want to do? You can think. We just put you in our Slack, and then you find out something what you do.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
most people never came back.
Yeah.
So the different way we started doing now, and I think which is more successful, not 100%. Also, this is, I think, completely normal, and you have to accept your limitations again, that some people, and maybe half of them, will leave after a while because something else happened, because they didn't expect this will be so serious. They expected something else. I don't know. They didn't like someone in the team. We also had one time at least that there one girl left after a bit, saying that she didn't like what was happening in the team, which she did not elaborate, and I really don't know, because it was just one case like that. But I guess sometimes just personal things happen. So what we do now? Now I am responsible for this, and I think it's a good idea that the team coordinator is responsible, because this is the person who usually has a bit of the better overview of different sub-teams. I have a call with potential new volunteers, like people who said, I want to volunteer, and I invite them for a call, and some of them already don't show up there, which is already a cut. Very nice. They couldn't even make it, so fine. I tell them a bit what are some guiding principles of 15x4. I talk them that there is a structure, that communication is important, this kind of stuff. And then I tell them we have this and this and this kind of teams. And I say this and this and these teams. I usually pick the ones that actually are in need for help. I say this and these teams need help. So if you don't have a strong preference for other teams, the best if you join one of those. But if you have a strong interest in one of the other teams, this is also probably possible. And then I clearly ask them, so what exactly would you like to do? Which team would you like to join? Sometimes they tell me straight away. Sometimes they say, okay, let me think a couple of days. And some of them afterwards say, I realized, I also tell them how much time expectation this would be. I mean, this is of course like super big range. You can do something 2 hours per week or 1 hour per week, or you can do 8 hours per week. But I kind of give them estimation how it would work, and that they can adjust and so on. Then I get feedback from all of them, either that they want to join specific team, or they say, I don't want to, maybe later. Some of them don't say anything. Then again, they're just out. And only when they committed to be part of a specific team, I invite them to our Slack, and I like do any other more formal onboarding. And then I put this person in touch with the coordinator of the team, and tell them, please figure out what this person now can already start doing in the coming time.
Okay, so basically, in order to reach the state when you will call someone, the person needs also to show that he or she is interested, basically, right? So that you don't spend too much your time, right? Because sometimes people come and they don't know. I don't know if Daria or if Marina also have similar experiences in their projects with that, or with Anna, because Alena, I don't know, because with Nasia, right, we also quite often in lectures we felt this need of help from outside, but at the same time sometimes it's very hard to keep people sometimes not really having in mind what they exactly want, for example.
Yeah. Anyone has comments?
Oh yes. How can inspire some people to do something?
how can you explain it a bit again? I didn't get it.
How can I explain? If you join some people who want to do something but not understand exactly what, how to inspire do something special.
Okay. So how to inspire new people? I really believe that inspiration comes from clarity, and clarity comes from knowing what to do and what the structure is like. That's why, again, this is connected to what Lyubov asked. First, people need to understand how generally the team works. And when they agree that I want to be part of this part of the team, they kind of know what is the function of the team. And then when they join the team, they need to get some specific tasks, and as specific as possible. And I can give you a bit of a different example. For example, sometimes we recruit volunteers for not a function, but a project. For example, last summer, we thought we want to have social activities, but there was no one to organize them. And then I met with the new potential volunteers, and I told them these are the functions, like sub teams that you can join, but also I have this project that we want to do, social activities for the team. And one guy said, okay, I actually want to do this. I think it would be interesting. There is no team for this, so I was the one to onboard him. And we talked with him, make an agreement, like in the next half a year, he will organize one activity per month. This will be probably, like he gave the suggestion when it would be, we agreed it will be last Sunday of the month. That we discussed what could be the potential things to do, like going to the bar, go to bowling, stuff like this. And then he started doing that. And I would also check on him a couple of times. So first of all, I will observe if he's actually doing everything. If he has no questions, then maybe it's completely fine, it's working. I would ask him maybe in a month how things are going, if he has any problems. Okay, Nasia, I let Anastasia right now, and I did not see her before. I'm sorry.
It's okay, perfect. Thanks. It happened.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning people need to get something very clear, and people will start being inspired and feel empowered when they feel, okay, I'm doing something, it's working, cool. I also now have some ideas, what else can I do? And then this person brings ideas to the team, and then we discuss, and they are being implemented.
Yeah, thanks. Nice examples.
Sure. No worries, Alona, thank you for joining us.
I have a question actually about the buddies that you said, right? That you have a speaker and then you pair them with a buddy. So do you use any criteria to choose who is the best buddy for someone, or is whoever is available at the time from the volunteers?
Well, it's a combination. Usually, unfortunately, we still have limited number of people who help with talks preparations, mostly because these people have to be at least a bit experienced. So we say our rule of thumb is you first need to be a speaker yourself, and then if you want, you can join speakers preparation team. So at least you prepared one talk with us and you know how it works. And usually we have 4 to 5 people available for a specific event preparation, and we have usually 4 talks to prepare, so it's limited. But we discuss who will be the best buddy, and this is based on, I think, 2 parameters. So we decided after the first rehearsal, after we heard this person talk, this is based on topic. So if there is someone who knows certain topic better, then probably this person will be assigned to a respective speaker. If there is no one who knows this topic, then who is the most curious about this topic and who is like willing to also do a bit of digging on his own, her own. But the second thing is also pretty important, actually. It's the personality. People give feedback in very different manner.
Mm-hmm.
And while, of course, the more you work in this, the more you prepare speakers, you learn how to be more polite and be precise, but not offend people with your feedback. You still people have different personalities. At the same time, there are some very stubborn speakers who actually need a bit of a push to convince them. And since we have different personalities in speakers, and we have different personalities in speakers preparation team, we try to match. So which speaker needs what kind of personality?
That's very interesting. Actually, it's interesting that you say that the body, if you don't have the expertise, which I guess can often happen, you know, there's so many different things out there.
Sure.
It's how curious they are, because they will be engaged, right? And they will make the right questions, and they will try to dig that. That's actually very nice. Very good tip. Makes sense.
Also, sometimes there are some a bit controversial topics. And if one of the team members feel that he or she has this very strong opinion about this topic, then they usually say, you know, I think I would not be a good buddy because I will have a very strong opinion how this should be directed. And we try to keep, even talking about these controversial topics, we try to be very fact oriented, to not give any opinions, right? So we try to then give, so that the buddy is someone who is neutral about this.
Actually, I have one more question for this. When you get, sorry, I'm still in the, it's a bit end of the day, so I get disoriented. Okay, so you said that there is a structure and you try to follow something, but not over-engineer the talk, right? Because it's also part of the personality of the speakers. So what is the most, I'm just trying to probe the range of activities that, you know, you have organized. What is the most unusual, let's say, element of a talk that you have organized?
Well, to be very honest, we did not have so many unusual things because our speakers are mostly scientists, very academic background people who are used to doing slide talk presentations. We have one guy who's been a speaker a couple of times, and he is actually a professional performer, and he worked in ballet as well. So he's very oriented to do some more activities with the audience, and he invited people on stage to do something with him, or he showed some magical tricks to illustrate something.
Yeah.
This worked nice. What else unusual we had? I mean, we also had this brain-computer interface talk where the speaker also brought an assistant. An assistant used the neurofeedback to control the car.
So like demonstration of this.
Yes,
that's actually
exactly.
I was wondering because like these are things that could engage a wider audience, as you said, because a lot of times the audience is, you mentioned somewhere the percentages are mostly researchers, right? Because they're the first ones to get interested in science. But that's also because of the communication, I think, bubble that we have. We tend to advertise this in institutes or places, and you don't know where else, like, right? Or you don't know. I'm sure there is more venues, right? As you said, the 𝗔𝗯cie𝘂𝘁𝘁, for example, got hold of that. Which is awesome because 𝗔𝗯cie𝘂𝘁𝘁 is read by a lot of people that maybe not maybe much older people. I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of people my age, for example, trying to read the newspaper. And this is like, of course, this doesn't devalue the newspaper at all. It's like a venue, and still you reach out people over 50, which is an audience that would never get into this in any case.
Yeah.
That's actually cool. But I was thinking, if the experienced researchers, the experienced speakers researchers that you managed to have, if they would be interested in making like this type of seminars in a way for sharing the engagement tips that they have for people from the generic experience. And I'm saying that for example, we did that with science slammers, right? Because the science slammers tend to usually adopt a completely different model. Slides, but sometimes the storyline, it is something that has nothing to do with the research research and you only get to know it at the end, for example. And they can be performers. They can use performance elements in what they do, and that's sometimes very pleasant to see to watch from, regardless if you're a scientist or not. So it's entertainment element, like it's an entertainment part. Yeah. So I was wondering if once you have all this expertise and experience. So if you could isolate or invite specifically the people who were the most out of the box and try to ask them their opinion, how do they come up with this format? Like what they can tell to others who would like to do similar formats.
It's a good question.
That's for more.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice. I don't know if this is something you can really learn. FameLab is also something that has a lot of this performance direction. I'm like, I cannot say I'm a big fan of this, partially because often it becomes much more performance than actually sharing any knowledge, or the knowledge that is shared is so superficial that I'm not sure this actually is valuable. So yeah, I'm kind of unsure. And also on the other hand, for 15x4, we have formed some kind of niche where we operate. And I think if we try to completely derail or try to focus on something else, we will also change the audience. Like our regular guests like the kind of format we have, that they learn a lot of facts, information, and they don't require so much entertainment to stay focused.
To stay focused,
also
yeah.
Talks are pretty short. I mean, 15 minutes is really not long, so you can stay focused if there is a clear structure that you know why things are happening. And sometimes I think it's really just too much performance is actually not so educational. But I think that's just my opinion on that.
No, I mean, it's clear that the format 15x4 has to follow, 4 times the format. So that makes sense for this. I was just thinking generally, like for engaging this to other audiences, like if we would visit in a general science communication, discipline, not only this. This is the one aspect, but I'm thinking of other aspects that we can through. Because, for example, I had this similar. Actually, myself, I realized I was a bit close-minded. I think sometimes I'm very open-minded, and it's amazing why you recognize sometimes that I didn't think of that. And we had recently a talk with someone from the Black Lives Matter movement because of the recent events. And there was a science communicator that was actually combining together entertainment. Because they found, or their approach was that she was active in Africa. She was in UK, but also in Africa, and they found interesting and more engaging to include the music alongside the demonstrations. That's another format for sure. It's not the same as talks, but they found that this is more engaging for people of a different culture, that maybe our culture doesn't immediately see, useful. It can be. I mean, I'm not saying, but it could be that for them it's like for these cultures it's easier for them. They find it more engaging, and that's just a cultural aspect that I would never think, because I myself come from Greece and we are super traditional when it comes to science. I'm very traditional. I went to Germany and I found Germany modern. So imagine, and then I went to other places and I find so this is like so traditional.
What do you call modern? You mean that people experiment with formats? Because
no, how serious you have to be to do science. How serious you have to be to do science, or to communicate science.
Okay.
Interesting. Well, I wanted to say, well, I'm from Germany. Well, I was raised in Germany as a scientist, so I'm very serious. But if you say Greece is even more serious, well.
No, Greece is even more.
You mean that if you have blue hair, nobody will consider that you're a scientist?
Not really that. It's about how do you dare to speak about science. I mean, popular.
Okay. So it's not.
I mean, I'm saying now personal experience, but maybe that's useful for the feedback we want to have here. So the personal experience that I came from the physics university, like being disciplined with how you should talk about physics, what is the theory, how important is this, And then for my first essay, we thought I was going very well because I put all the equations and all the text, you know, they told me, but you need to put a motivation. And I'm like, what do you mean motivation? It's physics. I mean, if the motivation is there. So for me, this aspect was already considered a bit of an insult first time I heard it. Like, you are not taking this seriously. But if you need motivation as as different researchers, and that was 10 years ago, by the way. So if you need actually researchers to be motivated, and you need to motivate researchers, imagine what happens with the audience that is not even, it's everyday business to look at these things. So.
Furkan, do you want to say a couple of words about yourself? You just joined, and we would be happy to meet you.
Sorry, I couldn't make it earlier on time, so I was just curious about how do you organize these works, and I also looked at your
happy
website.
to join.
Okay, so I have actually nothing more to add. I just tried to get a glimpse of what you were discussing the whole time. So sorry for joining up late.
No worries.
Sorry. Thank you.
What are you doing? Are you involved somehow in science communication right now?
No, not really. I'm just a PhD student now, but I would like to know your experiences. So maybe I will co-organize something here in Turkey with because I have friends and organizations who are interested in these kind of things, but nothing concrete as of now.
Cool. So I'm recording this call, so you can also watch my presentation afterwards if you're curious to know what I was saying.
Yeah, that would be good. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, and actually, I don't know how is it in Turkey in terms of now in the science communication, but I guess that in each country, one problem is that people need to speak their language of the country, right? I mean, also in Russia, when some people were traveling there, right, and they were saying, hey, I'm Italian and I travel to Russia, I would like to make a lecture. And then it was a problem actually to organize it fast for people who, in 15x4, you had examples, right, when you were doing these talks in English in other countries. I mean, like not English-speaking countries.
Yes. So right now, 15x4 in Russia is in Russian. In Ukraine, it's Russian and Ukrainian, depending on the city or depending on how the organizers or speakers prefer it, because both languages are spoken fluently. In Munich, we only do English because kind of historically, and also Munich has a big expat community, like really big, and there are many people who don't speak fluent German. In Estonia, in Tartu, they do it in English as well, because it started as by students and studying in English-speaking programs. And again, then they can engage more people, they felt. Where else it is? In Israel, I think they also want to start it in English. Well, they also can do in Russian, because I think it's like half of the population of Israel speaks Russian. Where else is which language? In Pakistan, they do in English, but interestingly, in Pakistan, they do a lot of things in English somehow. And when it comes to science communication, it's often like this. I guess in Turkey is maybe a bit similar, because there are some universities, for example, that teach in English, right?
Yes, my university is fully English, and there are some universities and some others are like 30% English. So if your target audience are the students or graduates from these universities, or maybe from some other universities who like speak English, it's fine. But if your general audience is general public, and I think my university, for instance, has this kind of program where they co-host such like seminars with municipalities, then it has to be in Turkish, because the general for the general public you don't assume that they speak English. Depends on your target audience, basically.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So any more questions? Yeah, Luba, go on.
No, but because I just wanted to say thanks again, Viktoria, for organizing that, and I hope that in the future, indeed, we will have continue these interactions and hear more about your projects. I mean, the projects of people here also around the globe.
I think now it's time to say when the next one will be. So, Luba, you told me that maybe we should move it 1 week further.
Yeah, we will discuss it with the lecturers that were, and I think that maybe in 3 weeks will be the best before like a summer break, and it would be great to see also what you think, what topics you would suggest to discuss, because actually topic of working with volunteers, it's one of the most difficult and probably the most valuable, because for many people who work in this sphere, they always, so thanks for bringing it up, structuring and showing that, sharing your experience.
But I think interestingly enough, and actually this is experience of 15x4 in some other cities, sometimes you can do a lot with a very small group. And if you're aiming to have a local event, sometimes group of 2 to 4 people is actually perfect. And then you have less of this headache of volunteer work and engagement, because you have just several friends who are really connected and know what to do and motivated, and it's easy. But if you want to grow and build something bigger, then often this becomes an issue. That's true.
Yes. Yeah, but we can discuss more about our experience.
Sure, but I think you should also definitely talk about what you have a lot of positive experience with finding schools, how to get in touch with schools, because Nastya was saying some stuff which was not obvious to me, how to contact schools, right? And maybe this is something that is also valuable for other people.
Well, in schools, I guess that the point was that most of the time people who are teachers, they do just so hard job that, I mean, basically a lot of things they do is that it's called also volunteering, right? So they are our main volunteers in a way, and we are incredibly grateful for that. Yeah. So Anastasia can tell more.
Yeah, I can not I've really learned life hacks and methods how to attract schools, and there are much more to learn in the future, in the coming months. But also, I would also having to sense on topic volunteers, because there are also other ways of attracting them, like creating a special hub for the youth engaged and giving them some other privileges.
Yes.
Yeah, this is actually a lot of material, right, Anastasia? So we have already something to prepare for the next webinar. What do you think?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we should definitely do that.
Yeah,
and we will announce it.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, please
shortly.
Let me know when the date is, so that I can adjust in Meetup, that everyone knows. And think who you want. Like Luba, you were mentioning Professors Without Borders. Do you want to ask them for like in another 2 or 3 weeks in September?
Yeah.
Or what? August?
Yes, and they also promised to cross-advertise. So the next events, they will post the news about it in their social media. So we can receive also their network and attract them.
Yes. So thanks a lot for making the links.
Sure. Yes. Thank you all for coming. I wish you a nice evening.
Thank you for
hosting. You too.
We'll be in touch.
You too, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.